Christmas is supposed to be the season of joy, laughter, and togetherness. But for me, that night became the darkest chapter of my life. I sat at the dinner table, the warmth of the fireplace brushing against my face, the glow of lights reflecting off the ornaments. My heart was filled with gratitude, or so I thought. I had cooked the roast, decorated the house, and prepared everything so my family could feel at home. But as we sat down with our plates full and carols faintly playing in the background, my brother cleared his throat. He tapped his glass, smiled, and made an announcement that froze me where I sat. His words cut deeper than any knife. "You're moving out. This home no longer belongs to you." The room went silent. Fork stopped midway. My mother gasped. I stared at him, waiting for a laugh, a smirk, something to prove this was a cruel joke. But his eyes, cold and steady, told me the truth. And in that instant, Christmas was destroyed. What followed was betrayal, humiliation, and a plan for revenge I never thought I'd create. But you need to hear it, because what happened next will leave you wondering, how far would you go when family turns into your enemy? This wasn't just a house. It was a home where I grew up, where my late father had painted the walls with his own hands, where every corner whispered with memories. When my father passed away, the house naturally fell under my care. My brother, James, had moved to another city years ago. He had a successful job, a new car, and a modern apartment, but he barely visited. I, on the other hand, stayed. I looked after Mom. I kept the traditions alive. Every Christmas, I decorated the same tree. Every year, I opened the doors to welcome family. This home was my safe place. But James had always been jealous of one thing, the house. Even as kids, I remember him saying, "One day, this place will be mine." I laughed it off back then. We were children. How could I imagine those words would come back like a curse? In the weeks before that Christmas, James had been unusually warm. He called more often, sent gifts, and even suggested we host dinner together. I thought maybe he had changed. Maybe he had grown past that rivalry. But I was wrong. I had walked right into his trap. That a tea at the table. James held out a folder. He passed it across to me as if it were some kind of present. I opened it slowly. Inside were legal documents. Papers showing that the deed of the house was now under his name. My hand shook as I flipped through the pages. "How?" I whispered. James leaned back, smirking. "Simple. Dad left it to both of us. And while you were too busy playing house, I made the right moves, signed the right papers. And now it's mine." Mom gasped, tears forming in her eyes. "James, how could you do this to your own brother?" But James was unmoved. He's had his time here. I've decided it's time for him to move on. Move on? Move on from the only place I'd ever truly call home? The walls around me blurred as anger surged in my chest. My own brother, my flesh and blood, had betrayed me on the holiest night of the year. The rest of dinner was a blur. I barely tasted the food. The lights, once bright and joyful, now felt mocking. I sat in silence, humiliated in front of my own family. That night, I made myself a promise. James might think he won, but I wasn't going to walk away quietly. The following days were the hardest. I woke up every morning in a house that no longer felt like mine. James wasted no time reminding me of his ownership. He visited with realtors, showing off the property, speaking as though I were invisible. Neighbors whispered. Family members avoided calling, unsure of what to say. I felt stripped of dignity, like a guest in my own life. But what James didn't know was that I wasn't just sitting in despair. I was watching, listening, waiting. And then I discovered his secret. While digging through old files of Dad's, I found a letter addressed to both of us, written by our father before he passed. In it, he wrote that the house was meant for me because I had stayed, cared for Mom, and kept the family together. His words were clear. James had twisted the paperwork. But Dad's intentions were undeniable. That letter became my weapon. Revenge is not always loud. Sometimes it's silent, precise. I knew if I charged at James head on, he'd only fight harder. Instead, I planned carefully. First, I went to a lawyer. We reviewed the letter. The lawyer confirmed it could stand in court as Dad's testament of intent. But beyond legal battles, I wanted James to feel what he had made me feel: exposed, powerless, humiliated. So I bided my time. I played along, pretending to pack slowly, acting defeated. James grew cocky. He boasted to neighbors about his property, bragged to Mom about how he'd saved the house from me. But on the day he invited extended family to celebrate his ownership, I made my move. The family gathered once again, much like on Christmas night. James stood tall, glass in hand, ready to boast about his victory. "I'm proud to say this home is finally mine," he declared, flashing that same arrogant smile. I stepped forward, calm, steady. Then I placed a letter on the table for everyone to see. "This," I said, my voice echoing, "is Dad's true wish. He wanted me to have this house. Because I stayed. Because I cared. Because I kept his memory alive." Gasps filled the room. Mom stood by my side, nodding with tears in her eyes. The lawyer, whom I had invited quietly, confirmed the letter's validity. James's face drained of color. This is nonsense," he stammered. But his words fell flat. The family's eyes turned on him, filled with disappointment. His arrogance crumbled. The very people he sought to impress now saw him for what he truly was: greedy, selfish, unworthy. In that moment, James wasn't the victor anymore. He was the exposed traitor. The legal process took weeks, but in the end, the house was rightfully restored in my name. James, humiliated and cornered, stopped visiting altogether. I walked to the halls one quiet evening, touching the walls, whispering a thank you to Dad. This home had survived betrayal, and so had I. Mom hugged me, tears of relief streaming down her face. "You did it. You honored your father. You honored this family." Christmas would never feel the same again, but in some ways it felt stronger, because the house now carried a new story. Not just a betrayal, but a resilience, justice, and the strength to stand against even the cruelest kind of family betrayal. Looking back, I realized something powerful. Betrayal often comes from those closest to us, those we least expect. And while it hurts, while it shatters a heart, it also reveals the truth, who people really are. James taught me that greed can blind even family. But he also taught me the importance of standing up for what is right. If I had walked away quietly, I would have lost everything. Not just a house, but my dignity, my father's legacy, my peace. So here's the lesson I want you to take. Never let betrayal silence you. Fight with truth. Fight with dignity. Because in the end, justice has its way of shining through. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is not destruction. It's reclaiming what was always meant to.